Well, it's time now for French Connections, our look at the intricacies of life here in France with Solange Mougin. Solange, today you're focusing on food banks, which I gather are in an increasingly difficult position.
Yeah, they are. Food insecurity in France is growing and at an astounding rate. In the past decade, the number of people asking for help has actually tripled. At least 2.4 million people received food aid in 2022. Charities actually say the number is closer to 7 million, that those faced with inflation and hard times, so many people have actually no choice but to knock on their doors.
On est à plus 37%.
Enfin, tout est devenu cher et la hausse des salaires n'est toujours pas d'actualité. Donc, on essaye de joindre les deux bouts comme on peut.
Now, there are four main charities in France that provide food aid. Les Restaurants du Cœur, which literally translates to heart restaurants. And then there's the French Red Cross, the Secours Populaire, the French Federation of Food Banks, or les banques populaires, des banques alimentaires, rather. It's over 100,000 volunteers collect denrées alimentaires, which is our word du jour. It quite simply means food that the bank then distributes to over 5,000 charities. They receive it from individuals, from supermarkets with expiring food, and certain essentials, well, they actually have to buy them, which means that charities, too, are weathering food inflation and high energy costs.
La chaîne du froid est fondamentale à respecter. Et la chaîne du froid, c'est quoi? C'est de l'électricité.
So how are these charities funded?
Well, the top big four are funded by the European Union, by the French government, regions and federal, and also by tax deductions, tax-deductible donations from everyday French people with drives throughout the year, but especially in November and in December.
Bonjour monsieur, un petit don pour la banque alimentaire s'il vous plaît. Il y en a qui sont concernés, puis il y en a qui n'y sont pas. Hein. Ils nous disent allez voir Macron, c'est à lui de le faire.
Now, Solange, you mentioned Les Restos du Cœur. That's really one of the best-known charities here in France, isn't it?
It is. It was created in 1985 by the beloved French humorist Coluche. And in that first year, it delivered 8 million meals. Now, fast forward to 2022, and the nonprofit says that it served 171 million of them, and it has helped 1.3 million people. That's 200,000 more than the previous year. But such a spike in need has put Les Restos, as it's called, in a financially precarious position.
Donner à une famille de 7 personnes une boîte de haricots. Elle fait quoi avec sa boîte de haricots? Elle fait rien.
The government, France's wealthiest, and supermarkets, well, they've made pledges, and Les Restos may be out of dire financial straits, at least for now. But for the first time in its history, the charity has nonetheless had to decrease eligibility and also the quantity of food from 6 meals provided to 4.
And who are the people who are queuing up for this food?
Well, according to l'INSEE, their latest figures, 14.5% of the French population, or just over 9 million people, live below the poverty line.
Tout est chamboulé. On n'arrive plus à manger normalement. Parfois, on se prive même.
This issue of hunger is now seen as something that's intrinsically political here.
It is, because every year in France, some 10 million tons of food are thrown away to the tune of some 16 billion euros in losses. Now, on top of that, there's also the age-old question of who should help and how. And that debate has been going on for decades, as we're about to see in these images from the hard winter of 1945.
Bien sûr, il y a la soupe populaire. Ce n'est pas la charité, si grande soit-elle, qu'on te doit. Qu'on te doit, c'est le système humain qui fera vivre normalement les vieux du travail de tous.
And there's a lot of debate about how the current system works here in France.
Yes, there is. Some critics say the system is predatory, that while donations are good and essential, the current agro-industry system, where supermarkets and also billionaires get tax deductions for their donations, well, that it's a vicious cycle. Critics also debate about the role of philanthropy on the whole. Some critics argue that it solidifies injustices, with low wages making people rich, who then get added bonuses of a tax deduction if and only if they choose to give to the poor, that their wages are keeping them there. Advocates also question the food itself, saying that malbouffe, or highly processed food, which is often cheaper and thus catering to the poor, reinforces a sort of subsidized cycle of malnutrition and ill health among poorer people. All this aside, the food banks do provide something that is essential on top of the food itself, and that's social contact and a support system.
On a quand même besoin d'eux, et même de parler, tout ça, ça fait toujours le lien social.
Now, all that's a bit bleak, but I think you found us a positive note to end on, Solange.
I did. I didn't want to leave us with the dire. First, there is the solidarity. Hundreds of thousands of French people donate time and money every year to these food banks. But also in my research, I found another slightly adjacent tidbit about food distribution and what the government keeps on hand in the case that there is a sort of larger population emergency. Made for natural disasters and especially for the military, France actually has about 1 million meals that are ready to be distributed at any moment. Long-lasting and with a diverse menu, French soldiers say that they aren't half bad.
Les petits légumes à la provençale.
C'est rustique, mais après, nous, on aime ça. Partager ça entre nous, c'est toujours dans les moments les plus durs où on resserre la cohésion.
Now, France's military and emergency rations are actually thought to be some of the best in the world. The government actually sells them to other armies, and they're also traded among soldiers, 2 American meals for a French one, and the government actually keeps a stock for us normal French citizens just in case.
Thanks very much. Solange Mougin there reminding us about food banks and their importance. For more on French connections, you can go to our website, France24.com.